Hello everyone, this is Sir Derpy Creeper and welcome to WhizDum Wednesday. This is a weekly podcast style thing where I just pretty much talk about life things and just, better ways to improve them. So hopefully this will make a whiz out of you making wise decisions and steam them up to make them even better. I'd like to start off this segment saying, hey, listen, I do apologize for not having the guest that I was supposed to have on WhizDum Wednesday within the last 2 weeks that I said I would have with the last 2 weeks. It's just that due to last week being a more of a rough kind of the thing for me, I just wanted to express that was on my mind. I do plan somewhere in August that I'll have our super cool special guest on here. I think it'll be super cool and very awesome and beneficial to show a different perspective and stuff, so please be on the lookout for that. It will be called Wandering, I think the first one should be called, or Wind. Wandering or Wind will be what it's called, I guarantee you. If you see Wandering or Wind, that's our special guest, alright? I'm just keeping those specifically for him. He's an awesome guy from church, and I think he'd be really cool and an awesome guy to just listen to. I'd also like to recap Wells a bit. If you haven't seen Wells, I do recommend going back and checking Wells. Wells is the longest one I've done. Alright, I thought Wrath was the longest. Nah, dude. Wells is the longest I've done. And it's just talking about how, you can get yourself into these mental wells if you're not careful. And you can honestly, I feel like this could fit in a realm of depression, I'll say. So you can get yourself into a depressed state of mind if you aren't careful with what you're doing with your life or getting into situations. And I believe that everyone has fallen into a well at some point, so please give that a listen if you can. I highly recommend it. I also forgot to mention during our Twitch chat, this is where I learned some extra new things just in case I forgot something, and I was told a couple of things, and I want to say this as a notation to the last one. If you haven't watched it, I do plan on putting the VOD of the last one up, but I need to get the other ones up as well, so be on the lookout for that as well. But I will say that you can't put yourself into a well while trying to get somebody else out of a well. There's a point where you can take your hand out and you can put a rope down in the well, alright? But if they choose not to grab it, I do recommend you keep trying to get them to grab it, but don't force yourself down into the same well as them. And I think that's a cool thing that got brought up by Beef Bowl. He's a pretty cool, awesome VIP and regular in my chat. And our homie Chibi Dixie, who is a moderator in my chat and is also a Twitch streamer herself. But those two really just showed me a new perspective, and I thought, that's really cool. And I wanted to express that because I was like, man, I didn't put that perspective in the last one. So hopefully that may help someone out who missed that out on the last one. For this next segment, this will actually be kind of a two-part segment, but it's not really two parts in the sense of there's two warning segments. It's more of there's going to be a section about warnings, and then there's going to be another section afterward, which is kind of like, you could say like a sequel to warnings in a way. So the next one should be intertwined with this one. This is more the beginning part, and then the ending part is the next one that's going to come out after this, unless something happens to where I just really need to post something else. The next week will be pretty much like a sequel to this, so hopefully you'll be on the lookout for that. I know it was a bit wordy this time, so hopefully you enjoy the segment. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody has been in bad situations in their life. I mean, you've probably went down some road and you're like, man, I shouldn't go down here. Or you realize later in the future. We're not going to talk mainly about you being in these bad situations. We're going to mainly talk about how to avoid being in the bad situations. Next week we'll talk about it, and that's where the sequel part comes in. But I want to talk about how in your life, and I believe there's something like this in everybody's life, whether you believe in fate or God or a mystical entity out there, or even just you don't believe in anything like that at all, which is fine, perfectly fine. Well, as long as you aren't like, beating people up. All right, that stuff's scary. But anyway, in all seriousness, I believe in every part of someone's life, you have warnings. Warnings that say, hey, listen, what you're about to do is probably not a good idea. or what you're doing right now is not a good idea. You need to stop. And I believe everybody has those moments in their life or situations in their life that say, hey, listen, I'm a warning. You don't need to go down this path. And we ignore them sometimes, or we acknowledge them. I'd like to express how kind of signs show up. It's more of warning signs, I'll say, but they're still warnings. They usually can show up in different ways. Personally, in my version of a warning is usually my heart. My heart will feel off about something. And so there are people out here, by the way. There's people out in different places. People are different, all right? So my heart will have this weird wave hit it. And it's like, all right, something's off, you know? I'll feel like a disturbance in the Force. You Star Wars geeks probably love that. And you know, that's a good example, though. Even if you don't watch Star Wars or anything like that, you know, if you understand how I feel, it's like you feel this disturbance in the Force, like in your aura or something like that. I don't want to sound like I'm talking weird spiritualism or anything like that. And no, just to clarify, I'm 100%, you know, I'm a full-on Christian, so I'm not like scared to show my Christian side, but I'm just saying in the aspect of metaphor, you know, you feel like an aura hit your heart in a way. It's like this weird wave, and it's like, all right, something's off. That's usually a sign or a warning that says, hey, listen, you need to back off. Another version of warning can even be different signs that you see at visually, situational things. When you're about to do something bad, maybe something goes off or something happens, you know what I mean? Maybe the fact that, you know, you're about to do something that you probably know is bad, but you're like, oh, I'm still going to do it anyway because it feels good in my heart. And then let's just say, I don't know, maybe your cat comes up or something like that and starts clawing your glutes or something. I don't know. Stuff like that prevents you from doing that is I would call a warning. Some warnings are big, some warnings are not very big at all. And you got to watch out for these because these warnings actually help you. For the most part anyway. Don't confuse warnings. Because if you confuse warnings, I do believe that you confusing warnings could be a warning in and of itself. What I mean is that don't let your heart go for all these symbols and signs. Don't be obsessed with symbols and signs, because here's the thing, all right? Yes, I do believe warnings are signs that can help you guide the right way to where you need to go, but you can't let them always dictate where you get to go, because if you're consumed by these symbols and signs, you're going to think every little thing that happens to you is a symbol and a sign. And I struggle with that sometimes because I want to know where the right path is. And sometimes I look at these signs and I'm like, all right, where's the right path? Where's the right path? And I'm constantly looking at every little thing thinking it's a symbol or a sign. And you can't be consumed by that, because if you do that, you're going to think everything that happens to you is more of a symbol and a sign. And sometimes it isn't. You have to be careful to distinguish, not to be too consumed with it, because you still got to live your life, you know? Don't be consumed with the aspect of getting these warnings. Because here's the thing. I personally think warnings happen at the right time, at the right place. So if you're going through something, a warning will typically happen at the time that you need to take advantage of that warning to get your life in the better route, rather than taking a giant loophole around everything. And different things happen. So like I mentioned, there's different kinds of warnings. One in your heart, like I mentioned, situational things where maybe just something happens that takes your attention away from you doing this certain bad thing or bad path you're about to go down. Those are usually warnings that are kind of indirect. They're not direct. I do feel like the heart one is kind of more of a direct one, and the indirect one is situational things. Even visual kind of warnings, by the way. You may be thinking, oh man, you know what? I'm going to do something bad today, but you don't know it, but you're about to be doing something bad, and you may be getting a pop-up on your phone that just takes off your mind for some reason. Now, typically, here's the thing that I want to talk about is that you're probably wondering, well, what kind of bad things are we talking about here? Bad paths? That is a numerous junction of things, I'll say. Bad things can happen through different ways. You could be too caught up in drama, and your mind is too twisted into it. Maybe politics, by the way. I don't want to talk about politics, but if you're consumed by politics and drama, you're going to produce a negative outlook or a negative energy, and you're going to keep putting yourself into this negative hole. And I do feel like you get warnings like that sometimes, depending on like maybe friends' reactions. Sometimes friends' reactions are good warnings of like, hey, listen, you're pushing way too much. These signs are very good at showing that, hey, listen, you're heading down this wrong path, or you're about to head into a bad place. Sometimes these warnings don't even have to necessarily be you being in a bad place, by the way, because sometimes, you know, these are mainly signs that I would say that like you realize while you're already in the bad place or that bad path you're walking down. And it's normal to do this, by the way. Everybody walks down a bad path at some point or does something wrong. And I want to say that sometimes you even get warnings before something even happens. Typically, I think the heart thing is where I get it from, is that I get a weird feeling off in the distance, you know what I mean? And it's like, man, there's something weird gonna happen or about to happen. And those can be warnings. Now, they could be warning for good things or great things. It really depends on that aspect. But most people don't see their warnings. Some people ignore their warnings. And I'll say sometimes you get warnings about people. Maybe some people might treat you wrong, and you got to be careful of that. But here's the thing too, is though, like, listen, I get it. You can get warnings about people, but don't use a warning as a thing to judge somebody by someone's cover. Sometimes people just act quirky and stuff. Like me, for example, I like to whisper behind my breath, but it's a completely bodily function thing. It's not me really wanting to whisper behind my breath, but I do it sometimes because I think that what I say is pretty cool or something like that, and my body's just like, whisper it again. Like, you know, my body's like, do it again. You know what I mean? Like a meme. But, you know, if people saw me on the outside, they may see that as, oh, crud, that's a bit of schizophrenia or something. By the way, to clarify, I'm not schizophrenic. But if you judge to someone by their cover, you could probably think that I would be someone that's schizophrenic or something, or not in the right state of mind. You don't let warnings confuse you with judging someone by their cover. I mean, yes, warnings are a good thing of, like, you know, if someone's reaction is kind of off, or if they plan to have your best intentions most of the time, because there are bad people out there, yes, and I do believe you get warnings that come up when it comes to bad people or bad situations from other people that can happen. But don't let your heart's desires confuse the warnings in these signs, by the way. Because a lot of people have these problems where their heart's desires warp their vision of a warning. And so therefore they think, oh, in their heart's desire, this warning is saying something different than what it's actually saying. And you need to be careful of that. Listen, sometimes you get these red flags and stuff that come up. I had red flags in my relationship. In relationships, you know, it can be a friendship or a relationship with a boyfriend, girlfriend, something like that. I had one where, what do you call it? And just to clarify, me and my ex, we're yeah, okay. Listen, we were like super awesome. I think she's awesome. She thinks I'm awesome. I think that's cool. She's happy. I'm happy. We're happy people. It's a healthy breakup. Most of the time, people don't get that, and I'm blessed to have that. But I will say I did get some red flags about this person probably isn't the right person for me. And I can almost guarantee you she got some red flags as well. I'll speak on my aspect first and tell you, one, none of us were perfect in this. My ex is not a bad person, and I would like to see myself as not a bad person either. I feel like it's unmodest to say if I'm a bad person or not. I think that's a thing that should be decided from other people in a certain aspect, and what I do for God, in my opinion. But what I'll say is that in my aspect, I didn't have the ability, I was too scared to tell the truth to my ex during our relationship of, all right, how I felt during certain things. And it wasn't a healthy relationship at that point because I wasn't being honest with how I felt in certain situations. And so she probably thought in her head, all right, this is a red flag. He's an awesome guy, but this big red flag here is he can't tell me the truth when I need to hear it. And or how he feels when I need to know how he feels. And so that was a big red flag probably on her part. On my part, it's, you know, how she was acting towards other people, or how she was okay with certain things that I definitely was not okay with, and think it doesn't help in a growing relationship way. I also felt like, when I got excited about some things, she wasn't excited over them, which is okay in some aspect. But here's the thing. If you get excited over something, you would expect your significant other or something of the lines of your boyfriend, girlfriend to kind of just be like, hey, listen, I'm excited with you. You got to be excited and grow with each other, all right? And I didn't feel that. So those were some red flags that came up. Here's the thing about red flags, though, is that you need to address the red flags, especially when it comes to a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Address these red flags, because here's the thing. Sometimes these red flags can be taken out. They don't have to be pinned in there, you know? Address them first, because sometimes they don't know. If you don't address red flags, how are people supposed to grow out of it, you know? People need to know they're doing wrong so they can back up some. You can't just assume that they're automatically going to know, oh snap, these red flags are popping up on me. Address it to them. Now, if it's obvious, like if they're cheating on you, like straight up cheating and it's obvious, then yeah, honestly, that's a good red flag to say, hey, listen, you need to back out. But address these red flags. Listen, I get it, all right? It's kind of hard to confront people about these things, but it's good in a relationship with your friend or your boyfriend, girlfriend. I think that's a good thing to help you guys grow, and I think that's a thing you need to look out for. And warnings. Red flags are there to warn you as well. So I'm not saying, you know, all the time you have to address some red flags. Some red flags are way too major that you're going to have to, you know, dip out. You know what I mean? So a lot of the times, though, red flags typically don't get taken out. And that's just the reality, in my opinion. You can help somebody grow, but here's the thing. If they can't grow with you, then that's a red flag in and of itself. Red flags are there to guide you. Meaning, when I got my red flags, I had a feeling that this person's not the person for me. Now, don't get me wrong. She's the one that broke up with me, but there's nothing wrong with that. Listen, I want to clarify. I see us both as individually happy, and I think she's a great person and came out a better person out of this as well. I came out a better person from the relationship as well. So let me tell you something that's this. No one's perfect in a relationship, by the way. Two-way street. Even when it comes to friendships, by the way. Sometimes your friends mess up. All right? Sometimes your girlfriend or boyfriend messes up. Just address it. But if it's major, then that's where you got to realize, all right, my own happiness is important. And these warnings are telling you, if you go deeper into this, you will possibly ruin your happiness in the future. So you have to be careful of these things, all right? My happiness was on the line when I didn't notice some of these red flags, and I should have addressed them at the time, but I should have. But instead, later, my ex ended up finding somebody who she was truly happy with, and that right there, those weren't even red flags for me. I had this overwhelming peace that said, hey, listen, it's okay. She'll be happy with this person. And I was happy too. I knew the guy. I didn't know the guy, but like the way she talked about it, I was like, dude, this guy is freaking awesome. So I was more happy for her that she would be happy with what she wanted with her life. And that's the thing too, is that, listen, it's okay to let someone be happy about their life. These red flags try to help you from hurting yourself way too much and possibly even guiding somebody else to the right way. And that's what I feel like happened, is that I ignored the red flags way too much, and honestly, I left myself hurt way more than I would have been if I would have taken knowledge of these red flags at the time. I hope my my little ramble session there wasn't too much for you guys, but I felt like I needed to say that, is that, listen, if you acknowledge these red flags and they don't work out very well, or if it still continues to be a problem, but you see a better alternative, take acknowledge of these red flags, because most of the time they're right. And this applies to friendships as well. I know I went into a deeper version of a relationship-wise, but that was just because it was my personal experience with this. And friendships like that are like that as well. Sometimes you get a red flag of one of your friends that's just like, you know, I don't know if they have the best interest for me, or if they are the person I thought they were. And that's why these red flags are important to notice. Now, am I saying that your friends are scumbags? No, most likely your friends are not scumbags to you. All right, especially if they care for you, they're not going to be a scumbag to you. So also, to clarify throughout all this as well, don't be too worried about these warnings, because if you get so caught up into it, you're going to get anxious over every little warning. Warnings happen to help you guide the right path. Therefore, if these warnings come up, they don't want you to be anxious, all right? I believe these warnings show up in any form of way, all right? Whether it's through God, which I believe God gives us warnings, or if it's just through life situations that really show, hey, this is a sign that you don't need to be going where you're going. It's harder when it's in your relationship or your a friendship, because you don't know what the right path is to take, or you're scared for that confrontation. And I will tell you this, is that if they don't like that confrontation of these red flags, then clearly those red flags were there for a reason, that you don't need to be their friend anymore. I know that's kind of like a hard thing to handle with, but if they can't handle addressing the red flags that go off in your friendship, then they aren't really your friend, and those red flags were there for a reason. I will also say that actions are a very good indicator of what is a warning, because people's actions can really prove to you that, like, hey, listen, you probably don't need to be around these people. And I'm not talking about relationships now this time. I'm talking about maybe jobs. Maybe you're excited to find a new job, but you see the way you kind of get an atmosphere feel of it, and you're like, all right, this is a little odd. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that if you get a job, take it, because, you know, it gives you experience, and you need to learn from the experience of it. But you can get these warnings from other people and how they act. Like, you know, is this person going to treat me right in this job field? Is this boss going to treat me right? Is this someone who's going to take a look at me and say, hey, listen, you're an awesome employee. I'm going to do my best to keep you there. Now, don't get me wrong. It's a two-way street in that aspect, too. Be a good employee at that point. But there are also warnings of saying, listen, if they're trying to swindle you or give you a low pay just because you do a lot of good work, but they don't want to lose a lot of money, that's a good sign that you need to go or find a better place. Sometimes you don't need to stay in places for too long, and especially when it comes to the workplace. You're probably not going to work at Walmart or McDonald's for the rest of your life. If you do, then hallelujah, especially if you get promoted or something, awesome. But typically, you're not going to work there for the rest of your life, and there's some signs that say, hey, listen, you got to go or improve who you are. My question to you is, are you heading down a path you shouldn't go down? And I'm serious. I'm talking to you. And you may think, oh, it's not me. It's not me. Well, it is you. I want you to know, and I want you to reflect on yourself and say, am I going down a path I shouldn't be going down? Are these signs popping up that I need to look at? Did you ignore signs? Did you just go straight through with it? Let me tell you something. Let me ask you something, too. Are you catching yourself way too much up in drama? Are you getting way too political on people? Because let me tell you something. A lot of the people in this world get way too political, and they don't need to be. A lot of people in this world need to realize that, listen, not everything's life and politics. You need to really break off that political part. It's okay to have a political mindset in some points, especially if it's your job. But don't let it consume you, and to the point to where you become a negative person out of it. Because I've seen, especially on Twitter, everybody's a political mastermind on Twitter for some reason. But it consumes you and makes you spread a bad negativity. That's a wrong path. If you get consumed with negativity, you're going to push people away from you. Are you getting angry too quick? There's some signs that say, hey, listen, you need to calm down before things get worse. You'll get plenty of those signs. Reactions of other people. Some people can even be your own warnings as well. You may get a feeling or a still small voice that says, hey, you need to calm down, because if you keep getting angrier, you're going to have a worse path going up ahead. Are you looking at someone who isn't your spouse? And you know what I mean, by the way. And this is the thing I want to say is that, listen, not even just your spouse, but a boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, are you like eyeballing somebody else? Are you like admiring their look? I'll say that. But not really admiring their look, but in a way that's not very faithful to your relationship. If you're doing that, that is a start of walking down a wrong path to the wrong kind of relationship as well. Here's another one, and here's a big one that's going to come out, is this. What are you looking at on the internet? Let me tell you something. I can almost guarantee you, a bunch of you, and that's not me calling you out, because listen, I understand, especially guys, by the way, is that you look up things you shouldn't be. And you look up things that really give you this temporary happiness, I'll say. And so basically, you get really excited, we'll say, over things that you shouldn't be. Are you looking up inappropriate things is what I'm talking about. And it's hard. Listen, I get it. All right, especially if you're a guy, you probably think, oh, this inappropriate stuff's fun to look at and crud like that. it's temporary fun. And here's the thing I want to talk about. Temporary happiness isn't happiness. It isn't. Because temporary happiness has you feel good for a little bit, and then afterwards, you're feeling like crud again. You need to look for a long-term happiness, not a temporary feel-good, because temporary feel-goods don't work. Look for that long-term feel-good. The long-term feel-good, a relationship that you can trust. That long-term feel-good, putting your heart and your mind and your passion into something you truly like. Whether it be video editing, card deck building, if you like that stuff, that's cool. Our homie Rich likes that stuff. Construction. If you like to conversate with people, if you like doing podcasts, if you like doing, if you like to fight for the law, if you like to do justice, it's like, there's so many things that you could put your heart towards and then grow so much faster and not have to be weighed down by these addictions / things holding you back because you're wanting to look at these things online. And it doesn't have to be online. It could be other people. Like, especially, I know guys have a problem because we're dudes. I get it, man. I get it. All right, you want to look at other women and stuff. You don't need to be doing that. Especially if you're in a relationship. Warnings happen for a reason. All right? You need to listen to these warnings. Another thing on temporary feel-good is alcohol. Alcohol is a temporary feel-good. You feel good for a little bit, but afterwards, when you're done with it, you're kind of feeling a crud again. Especially when it amplifies your feelings. If you're a depressed kind of person, drinking alcohol, it amplifies it. It's more of an amplifier than I would say a depressant, or antidepressant, I'll say. Because in my mind, it's temporary happiness. And you're not finding that long-term happiness that can really help you out and get you through a situation. And I'd like to recap everything I've said pretty much so far. I do know I talked quite a lot, and I don't apologize. I thank you for listening this long, and that's this. Remember this, all right? These signs are here to help you. These warnings. They're here to help you get out of these situations. You need to really take into account of them because they're going to help you guide you on the right way. If you ignore them, you're going to head down the wrong kind of path. Don't be consumed with them either, though. Here's the thing. If you're consumed with these signs, you are literally going to drag yourself down just from being consumed with them. These signs and warnings are there for a reason, and they have their own time and place that they show up. You can't just automatically look at everything and then think, all right, this is a sign. Because if you look at everything and think it's a sign, then you aren't getting signs. You are just thinking everything is what you want it to be in a way. Don't let your heart's desires warp your vision of a warning or a sign in your life, because if you do, you are going to drag yourself even further down. Different people have different situations of warnings. Listen, your heart can be a warning. Situations that happen, if you're about to do something bad and something takes your attention off of it, that's usually a warning. Indirect warning, but a warning. It's saying, hey, listen, you get your mind out of this because it's going to get worse. If you get a warning about people, be careful of people. There are bad people, but there's also good people out there. Don't automatically judge somebody by their cover. Warnings sometimes can help with that, but don't dictate a warning into a judging someone's cover aspect, because if you do that, then you are basically warping your vision of a warning in that aspect as well. Give people the benefit of the doubt, but know when something's up. If you're getting too caught up in drama or politics, you need to come back. Like, dial it back some. You get these warnings that say, hey, listen, you're going too far. Your friends can be these warnings, by the way. If you're getting too angry, your friends' reactions can get, be your warning. Dial it back. Dial it back and rethink these situations as well. Warnings help you detour, basically. Detour so you don't have to detour even longer in life. They're very good to help you dodge bad things that'll happen to you. Learn from other people's experiences as well. A lot of people that are in your life can be warnings for you. If you learn from their experience, they're a warning to not do that. So learn from other people as well. That's the thing I should have added earlier. Stop looking at things online that are inappropriate. Trust me, I get it. Especially if you've been doing it for a while, you're probably addicted to it. And I can talk more about it on withdrawal, but I want to say, listen, if you're getting addicted to these things, you need to quit. And it's hard, don't get me wrong, and I'll go in more detail next week about this because I don't want to touch on it too much, but it's a temporary happiness is all it is. It feels good for the moment, but when later it really drags your heart down. You need to really not get consumed in your mind and your heart with that temporary feel-good of looking at inappropriate things online or drinking alcohol. Now, you have every right to do what you want, and I'm not trying to, go on to you and say, listen, you're Satan, because I don't believe you're Satan. I believe you're a person with human feelings and, feelings of you want to be happy. But those aren't the right ways to happiness. And I'll talk way more on that next week with withdrawal. Remember, jobs are a way too. You'll get signs when it comes to jobs. If you want to do a job, go out and do it. But there's no way you're going to be working at Walmart or McDonald's the entire time of your life, Just be able to understand that you want to be around people who want your best interest. So maybe you want a boss that has your best interest in you. That's awesome. But you also have to play your part as an employee and do the job that you need to get done. Don't ignore the red flags. That is the main thing I want you to remember. Do not ignore the red flags. Take very good acknowledgement of them, and if you're in a relationship or your friendship, address the red flags. Because if you don't address the red flags, how is someone going to grow from it? Also, if the red flags are huge, by the way, it says, hey, listen, you need to back out. Listen to them. Because here's the thing. If I would have listened to the red flags at the time when I was in a relationship, I would have felt way better at a quicker time and would have been more healed at that time rather than taking as long as I did to heal because I went too deep into the relationship that wasn't meant for my heart. Don't get me wrong, like I said before, I have no ill will towards my ex or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with having a healthy breakup, and I think that people need to realize that as well. But my ex still would have found that happiness that she needed at that time, possibly. Now, maybe you can say, okay, well, maybe you went as deep as that because maybe it's what she needed, and that's fine. I agree. If that's what she needed, then it's awesome, and it helps me get a learning experience out of it. But here's the thing, too, is that, listen, in the end, we both became happy, and honestly, I think that's the main importance with that is that these red flags help you find your happiness or see what your happiness should be and not force yourself to stay in something that's going to deplenish your happiness or your self-worth. And I feel like that's the main important thing that some people need to remember about red flags. The main thing you just need to remember is don't ignore the red flags, don't ignore the warnings. I hope you all enjoyed that segment. I did go on a little bit of a tangent. I wouldn't say a tangent, but I do feel like some people needed to hear the things I needed to say, and that's literally these things are warnings to keep you out from doing these things. You have to pay attention to these warnings, or else you're going to fall down a wrong path. And I want to say that, listen, this last part as well is that, listen, pray. I'm a big advocate for praying for something. Listen, just pray for, guidance. I always pray for guidance or something like that. I always talk to God. Now, that's just how I feel as a Christian. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. I just feel like I want to at least express that happiness and that feeling that I got from being a Christian to see if someone would want something like that or not. But I want to say that, please, acknowledge the signs. So I hope you all enjoyed the segment today, and next week we will have a continuation of this as well. So next week we'll be talking about if you get yourself into these bad situations and ignore the warnings, even though after many warnings you might be thrown your way, sometimes people ignore them or unintentionally ignore them. So I want to talk about that next week because I feel like that could be a good thing to talk about. And this is mainly when you're deep in these situations for next week. As in, if you completely ignored the warnings, you're in these bad situations that you don't even know about. I wanna express ways of getting out of these bad situations next week. So please be on the lookout for that, because honestly, I think that's a cool idea. And I want to say a quick shout out to my homies Beef Bowl and Jay Viper, because I was honestly in a big rut of what to talk about today. and they both liked the idea of warning. So I was like, all right, and then me and J Viper, we came up with the idea of, all right, let's well, I wouldn't say we came up with the idea, but we kind of spin the idea off of each other of like a continuation of warnings and into withdraw, which I think that is cool. And so I'm gonna call the next one withdraw, and it'll be about withdrawing yourself from the bad situation. So I do highly hope you check that out and be super cool and come check it out with me. I want to say I've got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and Twitch. I want to also encourage you guys to check out my Twitch channel, especially when I do these live right after we conversate about things, because sometimes I get a different perspective thrown at me, which I think is awesome. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, Dixie and Beef were just like, bro, what about this section of a well? It's like, you know, don't throw yourself into a well to get somebody out. And I was like, whoa, that's awesome, dude. I think that's cool. So I would love to see any perspectives on that too. I'd love to see different perspectives in a way, so I can either agree or see the idea of the perspective and then want to add that maybe to a later VOD and stuff. So that'd be kind of cool. I love conversating with people, and I'd love to check you guys out on it. I will say also on YouTube, I do post all my VODs on YouTube, so most of you might be checking this out on YouTube, which is fine. I think it's awesome because it's still out there on YouTube. All of my VODs, or not VODs, but like all my videos that I record of WhizDum Wednesday go on YouTube, and I do plan on getting Spotify in the future for it. But if you ever want to see any other WhizDum Wednesdays, I highly recommend them. I'll have a card or something, or I'll have the playlist put up here, and I would like to see if you guys could check it out. That'd be super cool. So anyway, I hope that made a whiz out of you making wise decisions, and it was able to steam them up and make them even better. I'll see you next week on Withdraw, homies, and you have a great rest of the week.